Okay, welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Thursday, February 10th, 2022, and today I will be reviewing at least one story here, and then we'll go from there. So the story I'm going to start with, and we'll see how long it takes to get through, is from H.P. Lovecraft. As I've said before, I am going through listening to the audiobook of his complete fiction. And so that has been interesting. As I also said before, he had some viewpoints that were not so good. So I'm going to kind of, just because this is more of a stream for entertainment, I'm going to not really go into those parts. They have to do with basically racism and similar, that kind of stuff. So, and which I do not support, obviously. But beyond that, and that apparently is true for his, from what I've heard, for his regular life, for real life, as well as it appears here and there in his fiction. But moving on to the story here. So the story came out. Well, it's in this book I'm reading, but it came out in the summer of 1926. Oh no, I'm sorry. Written in 1926, came out in 1928. So let's see here. The story starts with basically the narrator, who is Francis Wayland Thurston. He talks about his basically finding the notes that were left behind by his great uncle, George. I'm not sure how to say the middle name, so I'll just skip that. But basically, Angel, or Angel, I think it might be Angel. I think the audiobook said Angel, which is interesting. Who was a professor at a college, basically a language professor, and this professor died in the winter of 1926, and this is in the story here. And but Francis kind of wonders what's going on, because his great uncle died after being bumped into by someone, basically that was the death was determined to be some kind of a heart attack. So the story also starts with basically within these notes from his great uncle, Professor Angel. The professor says that it starts with the notes, and also this let's see here, this sculpture that's found with the notes, and it says basically the story describes it as a cross between an octopus, a dragon, and a human caricature. So, and if you look it up, excuse me, you can, if you look up the name Cthulhu, you can find images of it. So, and I'll spell that for you. That is spelled Cthulhu. So, anyway, there's this sculpture of this creature, and with this Francis's uncle's notes, and So it's basically was made by a sculptor, and it's the sculptor's name is Henry Wilcox. He was a student at a college near there, near where basically the same college, I guess, in Rhode Island, where Professor Angel is at, or at least near there anyway. Um, and basically, the sculptor said that he based the sculpture on a dream of excuse me, of great cyclopean cities with huge blocks and basically monoliths, and they're all dripping with green ooze. And so, and then there's references to the name of Cthulhu in the notes as well. And then Professor Angel also discovers reports of mental illness and outbreaks of just basically that and mania around the world. Basically in New York City and California, just all over the place. And so in the next section of this story, so basically that sculptor had this dream of this figure and of this kind of a city, and woke up from it, and around that same time there was an earthquake, and woke up from this dream and made this sculpture, which he eventually gave, apparently, or was passed down to the professor. So, and from there, the notes talk about this inspector, Legrasse. I'm not sure if that's how I say it. And it's basically talks about the first time Professor Angel heard of the name Cthulhu and saw a similar image. So this was in 1908. So this was apparently the story goes kind of backwards. But in 1908, I lost my spot. Okay, let me find it again. Sorry about that. That happens. Okay, here we go. So in 1908, there was a meeting of this group of scientists and academics and basically related to archaeology in St. Louis, Missouri, and a New Orleans police official named Legrasse, I'm not sure, basically came there and asked all these archaeologists to identify this figurine or this idol taken from or basically carved from mysterious green and black stone. Legrasse said that he had discovered the relic months earlier in the swamps south of New Orleans during a raid on a supposed voodoo cult, which will turn out to be actually a cult devoted to Cthulhu. And the sculpture looks very similar to the sculpture that Legrasse shows in this meeting is similar to the one that Wilcox makes later, I guess. Around the same time overall. And so after, let's see here. So basically, Legras and this other policeman, he's an inspector. They find this cult and this figurine, and one of the other one of the academics there, one of the archaeologists, Mr. Webb, who's a professor, says that and during an 1860 expedition off to the west of Greenland, he found a tribe of people who basically also seemed to be a cult devoted to dark forces and possibly and basically devoted again. So this is this second or third place where a mention of this Cthulhu is found in a cult in relation to some kind of a cult. So of course Professor Angel finds all this strange. So in the last part of this story, Thurston, who is the narrator, finds an article dated April 18th, 1925, from an Australian newspaper, and the article talks about this discovery of a abandoned or near abandoned ship in the Pacific Ocean with only one survivor and one other person on board who has passed away. Johansson, as the name of the man on the this boat. So, and it's basically he was the second mate on a boat a schooner called the Emma, which had gone from New Zealand. Apparently, on the 22nd of March, the Emma found a heavily armed yacht, and it was the people that were on the boat appeared to be devoted to the same being, the same in the story mentions elder gods. Excuse me. One moment, please. Sorry about that. Had to cough. Anyway, so basically a fight breaks out between these two boats, and the crew of the Emma survived, even though there were casualties on their side, as well as basically the entire crew of this yacht. So the crew of the Emma take control of the enemy's vessel, and apparently the Emma was damaged somewhat as well. Possibly more so than this Alert. The boat is called the Alert. So the Alert was the enemy group's vessel, but the surviving members of the Emma crew travel on the Alert, and they because basically when the two groups meet, the crew of the Alert told them to go back, that they couldn't pass. So that's kind of how that fight started. So the survivors of this battle want to know what's going on, and they travel on to this uncharted island that is basically, I'm guessing it's still near that general area. I'll give some coordinates here, but I'm not very good with that. So anyway, it says that I'm looking at this summary here. So this group of sailors, it's a small group, does not. What am I? I lost my spot again. So basically, with the exception of Johansson and another sailor who was the one that passed on their way back to New Zealand due to madness from seeing what was on the island, the remaining crew members perish on the island. Excuse me. And Johansson never reveals the cause of their death, apparently, to the officials. So Thurston goes to New Zealand and then Australia, where he finds the statue retrieved from the alert that it looks identical, mostly identical, to the others mentioned in the story. Thurston also learns that Johansson died suddenly at one point during an encounter with two other people, basically sailors, near some docks. And Francis learns this from the Johansson's widow, who gives basically is convinced to give Francis Thurston this manuscript written by Johansson. And that basically is the story of what happened on this island. And this goes back to the descriptions of people's dreams about seeing this strange city with huge blocks that can that's basically that same kind of green and black block. And it's just the basically the crew says that the crew Johansson says that this island, the machines, the buildings in this island don't make sense physically in terms of the angles and all that. And let's see, okay. So where was it? I think I might have lost my spot again. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So on this island, basically this crew finds this city, and they find a door in a building in the city, and it takes a little while to open it. But then they do. And so once it is opened, and it releases something that basically can't be described easily, it's basically they're going crazy, starting to go crazy already because of all this strange buildings. And I guess just this feeling of just dread. So basically this is also around the same time as the earthquake, I believe, or at least an earthquake. And at the same time as it's the same earthquake. I remember now, because at the same time, all around the world, people are having strange dreams of the city and this creature that comes out of the city that is basically it is Cthulhu, and it chases the sailors onto their ship and then out into the ocean, kills most of the sailors before they even get to the boat, just surrounds them, envelops them, and there's only two that make it onto the boat and barely escape. And they all around them is this stench of this monster, this beast, and it acts like it's not even physical most of the time, but then it can be. And so the ship rams this creature before escaping, but it doesn't really seem to hurt it. And so this after reading all this and hearing about all this, Thurston realizes that knowing what he knows, this cult that seems to be all over the world might try to use whatever methods they have that are untraceable to or by local police in any way to eliminate him, as they eliminated possibly his great uncle and others who found out about it. So that's basically the summary of that story. Of course, there's a lot more detail. And I'm not going to read that entire comment, but yeah, Cal should have left it there. Crazy, crazy person. Yeah, yes. As is so often the case in so many stories. But then, would there be a story, much of a story, if the people actually acted rationally and took the safer route, and just left it alone? But yeah, I agree. If I ever found a place that gave off that kind of a bad feeling, I don't think I'd want to be messing with it either. And I always say that, trust your feelings when you're dealing with anything that you can't easily explain. And sure, maybe once in a while you might be wrong, but I think you're still better off odds in terms of chances trusting your feelings than just whatever it is you're sensing physically. So, but anyway, so this story really got me thinking, and this is the second time this has happened. It got me thinking of another Stephen King novel that I read, and for anyone that's not a Stephen King fan, I apologize, but I am, so you're probably going to hear about him on a lot of these book reviews. I don't like every one of his books I've ever read, but I do like a lot of them. So, anyway, this got me thinking of the reference to artists. Basically, in the story, it says that a lot of the people that were having these dreams and suffering almost like a mental, like a psychic attack in a way. A lot of these people were artists of one kind or another, and it got me thinking of a Stephen King novel called Duma. Not sure if that was ever made into a TV series or a movie, but the book was really interesting. It was it was quite the ending that I won't completely spoil, but it was still a good book. So, since it does look like we have time, I will go into that. So, with Duma, it starts off with this building, the constructor, basically a construction contractor, Edgar Fremantle, who is basically in his truck when a vehicle, like a large crane, malfunctions, and it basically runs over part of that basically crushes him within his truck. And if Fremantle is severely injured, he loses his right arm, and also has several head injuries that impair his speech and vision and memory. And then also, of course, several broken ribs. And he survives this, but during his recovery, because of all the damages to his body, but also his head, he experiences basically just violent mood swings, and they lead to his wife filing for divorce. Um, so after this happens, once they're basically separated, um, his Edgar's psychologist, Dr. Kamen, um, so the Dr. Kamen suggests that Edgar move somewhere to the south. Um, and so Edgar starts looking around and finds this beach house on the island of Duma Key in Florida. And Dr. Kamen also basically urges Edgar to get back into one of his hobbies as of sketching, as a way to basically get back into a better mental state, more positive outlook on things. And so Edgar moves out there to this island, and it's basically most of the year or a good part of the year it's empty. All the houses along this beach are empty except for one. He hires a college student to help him with errands and other basically shopping, and basically as a personal assistant. And that's not long after that, Edgar meets the other full-time residents, which are Elizabeth Eastlake, who is basically in her she's a lot older. She's suffering final stage dementia. Her family trust owns most of the island, and her assistant or her attendant, Jerome Wireman, who was once a attorney, who's had basically his wife and daughter passed in freak accidents before this. And he actually this Wireman also, he had something in common with Edgar in that they both had suicidal thoughts. And Wireman, I guess possible trigger warning here in case anyone, I'm sorry, if anyone doesn't needs to not listen to this, I understand. But Wireman, before moving to the island, tries to kill himself with a gun, but he survives. So all three of these people, it will turn out, have head injuries. Now, Elizabeth Eastlake has mostly recovered from hers because it happened when she was a little girl. She fell off of a wagon or a pony and had memory loss as well. And so that's kind of something that ties them all together. And apparently, once Edgar gets to this island, and as Edgar is getting back into art, he notices one other thing that is happening. It started happening before he moved there, but it was increased once he got there. He was having this phantom limb syndrome, or this condition here where he basically can still feel his arm at times, and sometimes it even feels more real than others as he's recovering, and especially as he is painting. It's almost like when he is inspired to write. There we go. I'm a writer, so I would say that when he's inspired to paint or to draw at first, but then he moves to painting. It takes the form of this itch that goes up and down his missing arm, and so he starts doing these paintings. And So as he's doing this, he starts having um, experiencing strange paranormal things. Um, let's see here. So, and there's a lot of different things, but basically there's a few different things. One thing um, that, well, basically one thing that happens with him, also I forgot to mention, is when he is doing some of his paintings, and also this is related to when his phantom arm is itching. He goes into a semi-conscious haze, and his paintings become basically psychic visions, revealing different things happening not on the island, including um, basically his ex-wife's um, temporary, basically like a boyfriend that she had at the time. Another friend of Edgar's own problems with suicidal depression. And his another thing is his younger daughter's Elsa's marital engagement, and basically his paintings all reflect all these things happening. And so eventually, after all these strange things start happening, Edgar uses this ability to paint a bullet, basically the bullet inside Wireman's skull, because it got lodged in there. He basically painted and then unpainted or painted over this bullet in this X-ray of Wireman's head. He basically painted this bullet out of existence. And he also, Edgar, at some point, made a painting of a murderer, local murderer, basically child murderer, in his basically in the act of kidnapping this child that he murdered, this person murdered. But in this picture, Edgar, and again, he's not fully conscious when he's doing this. In this picture he paints of this man, the man doesn't have any mouth or nose. And then the next day when Edgar wakes up in the morning, turns on the news, and it basically he finds out that this man had died while in prison. Basically from unknown causes. And again, I believe it was even, if I'm remembering right, then I think it was even written off to possibly some kind of a heart attack, which is odd. So anyway, also, just going back to his daughter Elsa, he has two daughters, and they're both basically in their early 20s, going to college. But his younger daughter Elsa visits the island, and while there, they see a road that they wonder where it leads to. It basically goes to another part of the island that Edgar's never been to before. So they decide to drive down this road and see where it goes. But as they get further and further away from the inhabited area, parts of the island, which is basically past the mansion where Elizabeth Eastlake and Wireman live, Elsa starts getting violently ill, and even Edgar starts having memory problems again, as if something doesn't want them to be in the area. And that's confirmed in a voice message from Elizabeth Eastlake that he gets on his answering machine. This is back when I believe in the 90s, when there's answering machines on phones. regular phones. And but Elizabeth warns Edgar that Duma was never a good place or a lucky place for daughters, and that tells him in this message that his painting should be sold to multiple people far away, basically, just to disperse any kind of otherworldly power that they have or they might have. So basically, that's the first part of the story. Not long after that, Edgar learns that the house he's in has actually been used by several different successful artists, including Salvador Dali, and that Elizabeth Eastlake, also was an artist, but only in her childhood. And then basically, he also finds out that Wireman, in the time before Edgar removed that bullet from Wireman's head, Wireman, after his injury, started to basically be able to read people's minds about things, and especially when they were all on the island. So that's basically that. Edgar does decide to start selling his artwork at a local gallery. He also starts making this series of paintings of a little girl in a rowboat near, basically drawing closer and closer to this giant sailboat. And there's different items in the rowboat every time, and eventually the name of this boat, this sailboat, is revealed to be, I believe it was Persephone. And meanwhile, when Elizabeth Eastlake is going through her dementia, and she goes through times where she's not barely coherent, basically. She's Wireman and Edgar learn that she's basically trying to find this one China figurine. She even tries to basically ends up breaking several of these figurines while searching for it every so often. And so this story ends up leading to this backstory of Elizabeth's past, where she and her family, her father and sisters, lived on this house, which is on the end of the island where Edgar and his daughter started to get sick. And at some point, while basically scuba diving for salvage, Elizabeth's father finds this figurine in the ocean, and that's when Elizabeth starts making paintings that are not just regular drawings that she had immediately after her accident. And the rest of the story deals with what happened to Elizabeth's family and what might be behind it and who, as well as the same what or who this entity being responsible partly for what Edgar is able to do. And this time I think I'm going to leave the end of the story for you all to discover on your own if you want to. Just because the main thing that I was interested in in this episode here that we're doing today is the similarity between the connection between people in a constant, basically creative people that are always focusing on creation of art and whatever else, having strange dreams that you have to wonder sometimes. And this has been covered on other shows, including Troubled Minds Radio. You have to wonder if who or what maybe might be behind some of our strangest dreams that we have, and what might be behind some of the most amazing works of fiction and art out there. And so that's kind of what I wanted to cover today. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Just always happy to leave it with a question, because I don't claim to know much of anything, except maybe that there's more to this reality than we know, and there's more to it than, I think, than just us. There's something other out there. So that's going to be it for today. But thank you all for listening, whether it's to the live stream or the podcast or the YouTube videos. I really appreciate it. And tomorrow night I will be talking about haunted, two different things: haunted stadiums and concert venues. I got a couple articles that I can go over, and I think it should be interesting. I'll look into some more, and we'll go from there tomorrow. So thank you all, as always, for all of your support in this podcast, and have a good night. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal.